Alright, so like everyone and their mother, I'm gonna do a video on Dune. Hopefully this is kind of a fun one though. I don't know how long it'll be, but the plan is we're gonna go to the movie tonight and then I will talk about my thoughts. But I thought I would do a clip at the beginning to be like, this is my experience with the book. These are the feelings I have towards it. Not really like a review, just like my thoughts and then what I'm hoping to get in the movie. And then afterwards I talk about what the movie did good or bad for me. And maybe if I'm feeling adventurous, I show some movie vlog footage. So really casual video, but like I was thinking the other night when I was texting my friend who was watching the video, he had a bunch of thoughts. Like, I have lots of thoughts. And so this is why I have this channel, to talk about the things. So it's, sorry, it's like the 10th million Dune thing. I don't know if my experience is that unique or anything like that. I have my own opinions just like everyone else. And yeah, it's just gonna be a book movie comparison discussion vloggy video. So this is actually the copy of Dune that I bought in like 2015 at the Half Price bookstore. So it came used and I tabbed it up on my reread last year, but I've never made a review on this channel. And I've talked about it in like my classic sci-fi recommendation video, but I don't talk about it too much because I like this book, but it's not a favorite of all time, so I don't talk about it all the time. When I picked this up, I had just read Foundation by Isaac Asimov, and I was like, okay, I really liked that. Maybe I'm ready to read more classic science fiction. Maybe my brain is in the appropriate headspace that I have the energy to dive into these different writing styles and these more like thinky books. I did not expect Dune to be so world building heavy, which is like, if you know my channel, I love world building heavy things. And it was probably the first work where it was like the execution of world building where you had to use context clues, and there is an appendix, but I didn't use the appendix. It was more like, what is happening? Oh, this is cool technology, and you have this cool like fantasy thing, and man, what is this family getting into? I really love the first portion of the book, and I like the last portion of the book. The middle is a little sloggy for me. It's not my favorite pacing. And that was my experience, though, as I picked it up. The pages are such that it's like super easy to flip through, like really big words and spacing, and like it's really tiny margins, and it's mostly dialogue, so I was breezing through it my first read. I noticed when I read Ryan's copy last year, it took me longer because I wasn't getting the motivation of flipping the pages, and someone else already broken the spine for me, so it was a great experience because I picked it up because I was like, I think I'm ready. So I generally had a positive experience because I was surprised. I was surprised because this is an older work and it had a relatively modern writing style for me. It was familiar to the fantasy that I was loving at the time because 2015 I had not read as much science fiction. I think I had read like Red Rising, Ender's Game, The Martian, maybe Jurassic Park. Like I'd read a few, but not that many. I wouldn't have said it's like a comfort genre. I wasn't scared of it, but I mostly was reading The Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. I was reading Lightbringer. I had just read Name of the Wind. I'd finished A Song of Ice and Fire. Like that's where I was in my reading back in like 2014, 2015. And so this was really surprising. And I was surprised because I went into it being like, this is an influential work. I know it's going to have tropes and character archetypes that I'm used to. And boy, did it. But at the same time, I was just surprised at how captivated I still was by this story. Now that said, it had some faults, and this is where I'm hoping the adaptation will be better for me. So when I see adaptations now, and I feel like everyone has a different experience with adaptations, I want it to be slightly different from the original. I don't want just a visual form of the book. I don't want just a visual book. I want whoever it is to take the soul of the work, the intention of the work, what they believe the messages are, because everyone thematically interacts with pieces of art differently, and I want them to now take advantage of the new media that they're putting it into and make it something else. That's what I like from adaptations now. That's not how I was when I was a kid or even a teenager. I used to want things to just be a different way to consume the exact same thing. But nowadays, I really want things to take advantage of the different media. With movies, you can have really pretty pictures without all of the words of description. I think one of the flaws of this work is the characters could have been more fleshed out. When you have actors, there can be a lot of good acting that really brings characters to life and connections and fun banter and things like that. I know that they're splitting this. I mean, I know it's part 1 for the movie. So I'm really excited because that's like my favorite part, to see where they end it and how they vamp things up. And so I know this director, he did Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, both of things that I've watched, and he's a really good director for classic sci-fi because classic sci-fi is not as action-packed as I feel like some classic sci-fi films make you think it is. Like, the original Blade Runner film is like a weird noir type thing, and that's not what the book was, sort of thing. And like, I feel like that happens a lot because it is hard to take a very thinky, philosophical work and put that on screen, because people would associate with Dune very high action stuff, and that is what they've done with the trailer. And I'm hoping there's more action than there was in the book, because I think the book's pacing, it chose to show us things that were less interesting than the stuff that was happening, but it was happening like off page. So I'm hoping they do make that choice, but I'm also prepared for it to be like a slower paced endeavor, because that's just like, I know the director's style. He definitely lingers more in shots than I feel like other people do. He has a different pacing that I think lends itself to the soul and vibe of certain classic sci-fi stories like Arrival, and Blade Runner 2049 is not based off a book, but I feel like that movie is way closer to what Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is, in my opinion. So that's what I'm kind of expecting. I'm very curious because it looks like based off the trailer. I've only watched it once, but it seems like Paul's going to be a little different. And I think I'm okay with that. And what I mean by that is Paul is kind of, not getting into spoilers, but he's like one of the original chosen ones. Like, especially like brilliant genius child chosen ones. That's Paul. And so, we've seen that in Ender's Game. We've seen that in several stories since Dune. And I don't know, it's weird. You keep forgetting when you read Dune that he was 15 or 14, and I'm glad that he's aged up in this. And he's a little, I don't know, I obviously I'm interpreting things when I read the book. But when I read the book, he's very, not arrogant, but confident, which isn't a bad trait to have. And it made it hard to connect with him for me. And I don't know why. It wasn't a big issue, but I think he looks a little more unsure of himself in the trailer, and I'm kind of excited to see that take on his character and how things will go. How does he interact with his mom and his dad in this one versus the book and other companions? So those are things that I noticed in the trailer. I don't have a checklist. I want to have fun. I want the soundtrack to be stunning. I want the scenes to be gorgeous. I want to be emotionally swept away. I mean, part of that is why I reread this last year in the summer in anticipation of the movie in the fall or winter, because I don't like to consume a source material too close to its adaptation, because then all I do is compare and contrast, it was done this way here and it's not like that here. And although I like doing that nebulously with this much space between it, I remember some plot points, but not too many plot points. And I think that's for me, the perfect way. That's how I went into His Dark Materials and things like that. I don't want to be doing that. These are all the ways this thing is different. I just want to consume it as its own thing, and then big picture, think about what did and didn't work with the big changes. I'm excited though. I trust this director. A lot of my friends have already seen it. This is Saturday. I have had to wait, but it's going to be great. So maybe you will now see some vlog footage or say hi to future me who has thoughts on the movie. So I saw Dune last night. I showed you guys my crunch bar stuff. Not bar, but the crunch in the box and the icy, because that's what I love to get at theaters. And I had to control myself because, it's almost a 3-hour movie, and I can't drink this icy all at once or I'll have to pee in the middle. And I did okay. In general, I'm not going to talk about plot points and things like that, but I thought this was a great adaptation for what I wanted for Dune. So it definitely adjusted some plot points that irked me in the book that weren't bad, but I didn't love them. And I am really glad that they adjusted or knocked out some parts that I was just on when it came to the book. I actually was surprised at how play-by-play true to the novel it was. There were so many scenes where I'm oh yeah, it's that scene. And like I said earlier, I haven't read this book for over a year, so it's odd that I was really remembering chronologically, oh yeah, these are the things, and that was interesting. As I expected, it did have the pacing and soul, in my opinion, of the novel, which is not as breakneck action-packed as I feel like some people maybe think this movie/book IP is meant to be, where it's actually more pondering and slow build and meandering and just very like take in the world building. And like in the book, you spend a lot of time with Paul and he's just trying to get his thoughts all together. I really like how they handled Paul coming into his own. I thought Timothy did a great job of Paul. How I know his character, I obviously haven't read Dune Messiah, but I find this version of Paul way more relatable and likable for me than what I read in the book. Still very much a kid who can do everything, and we kind of get world building explanations for why, but I don't really care. Like, he's the chosen one. He's the most chosen of the chosen ones, one of the original chosen ones. That's fine. Something that I did notice, though, because I thought this did an excellent job introducing the more complicated parts of the world building, probably for people who, haven't read the book, in good exposition that wasn't like too heavy-handed, but also like really clearly defined certain parts. But because it was so good at some of those moments, it kind of highlighted for me a part of both the book and the movie. Like, it's a key part of the plot of like why this family ends up on Arrakis, which I do understand now. We've been talking about it in the Discord, and I do get why things worked the way they did with the politics, but I don't like how it's executed in both the book and the movie, this explanation. I think it's muddy. I think it's really convoluted and messy and technically makes sense, technically works, but my brain doesn't love it that much. But it's honestly not a deal breaker. It's just I noticed that because this movie was so good at executing the explanation of other parts of the world building and how it did that and how it explained things. I liked what they did with Jessica's character. I thought she became more likable for me. And it's not that I really disliked her, but like I enjoyed the acting that was brought forward for Jessica. Did anyone think Duncan wouldn't be done well? He was fantastic. I really liked who they had for Duke Leto. That was great. I had a good time. It was exactly what I expected this director to do with this IP. And I don't have complaints other than why is it a trend in sci-fi movies to have dialogue be optional if you can hear it? Like, goodness. I saw this in IMAX. So in theory, it was designed for this experience, right? Like, I understand sometimes you watch an action movie in theaters, and then when you watch it at home, it's just like all out of proportions. If you can on a media player, you can adjust things. But like, I am in the theater where this was designed to be shown, and there were several scenes where I couldn't hear what someone was saying, and I have really good hearing. Like, that's not actually one of my senses that's bad. My eyesight, horrible, but my hearing's actually really good. And if I hadn't read the book, there were some scenes where I really wouldn't have understood what was happening because I couldn't hear what the person was saying. And this happens in Christopher Nolan sci-fi movies all the time, and I'm just like, why is this optional? Like, I don't understand that. Or like, if you know that it's going to be hard to hear there, why don't you just like self-caption this part of it? Like, if you really want this balance. Like, I don't know. From a consumer level, it's just frustrating. Like, I don't get it. And it's obviously an intentional choice. I don't think people are lazy or unable to do their job. I just don't like it. So that's just me, like, not liking that as like a sci-fi movie trend. That's not my favorite thing, but I loved the visuals. That was really cool. I knew exactly where we were going to end part one, which apparently a lot of people didn't know this would be a part one. I always knew that when they took this book, I knew exactly where we were ending in Dune, because it kind of makes sense, and I really like part one, and I'm really excited. I think we're going to get a part two. I think it's performing well enough that the part two actually doesn't have as many words, so what they choose to extrapolate on, because I think they're going to make Chani have more of a point of view, which would be awesome. And are they going to do, like, there's a time jump there, where, like, in the book, which is why I knew where it would end, because there's, like, a pretty significant time jump. I'm like, are they going to do the time jump? Are they going to fill the time jump? Like what's going to happen? I'm very interested in that. And Ryan wants you guys to know that he was happy with the worms. The worms lived up to his expectation. That was the only thing Ryan cared about, was seeing some space worms. So yeah, I don't know, not very like nuanced or comprehensive, but it served what I wanted it to do. I can for sure see people who love the source material more than me being like, I can't believe they took this thing out. I don't like these changes in characterizations. But I am someone who liked but didn't love the source material. Like, I appreciated it. And all of the changes worked for the things that didn't work well for me. So that's just like a happy coincidence that that team decided to cut out and adjust things that I didn't like. And my only qualm is like the weird political machinations in the background. And maybe part of that is that I've only read the first Dune, and maybe it's explained in one of the many spin-off trilogies. Like, I know there's like preludes to Dune and everything else. And I guess eventually I'll read Dune Messiah. Like, if part 2 performs well and we're like, okay, we're for sure getting movie 3, which is supposed to be Dune Messiah, maybe I'll read it. Or maybe if I feel like being nice to Evie, I will read Dune part 3. Well, not part 3, Dune Messiah. You guys know what I mean. So that is this video. Hope you enjoyed your 20th Dune video on your subscription feed. And if you want to leave an emoji, leave a worm or a desert. Because obviously, I guess you could leave a planet. Anything that makes you think of Dune. Be creative. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Please don't spoil it. Like, I know this is from 1965. I don't even know how you easily spoil this. I guess there are moments that can be easily spoiled. So don't spoil the movie. We have a whole Dune chat in the Discord, so you can come chat spoiler stuff over there. But if you had a favorite scene, if you had something you really didn't like in the movie, just label things as spoilers, tap enter a couple times, and then we can talk about it. And per usual, I don't think I said anything that would upset mega fans. If you didn't know, there's a whole portion of the fandom that's just like absurd on the internet that just like posts the most condescending and mean stuff. I'm just deleting all of those. So if you choose to spend the time to write that type of comment, I will be deleting it, and that's just time you've wasted. But otherwise, any other fun conversation is totally welcome down in the comments or on the Discord. But otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.